Security high level. Policies. The first policy is to secure the system. That means that only global teams can view all data and only business units can edit their own data directly. This also means that business units own their own user groups, as is what users are assigned to a given group. The second policy is to keep it simple. That means that role groups are global and user groups are local. We'll explain those two here in a second. Vocabulary. This is probably more detailed than a general user needs, but it's worth a few minutes to learn it. Here we have a user, and they get assigned to user groups. Those user groups get attached to a permission filter as well as role groups. Those permission filters control which data can be seen, and those role groups control which functions can be done by that group or role group. The idea here is that a planning area where all the data sits is going to go through a permission filter, and you will see the subset of the data at the end based on your permission filters. And the idea with role groups is we have something called business catalogs, which are a collection of functionalities, and those get assigned, one or more get assigned to a role group. Here we have an example of Nikki, and we're looking at what function she actually has. So what tiles on her web browser can she actually see? She's actually assigned multiple user groups. So all user OAR, which would be her business unit, the DP user for OAR, the power user for OAR, and then a general user group called for segmentation. All these together will control all of the functionality that she needs to have. The roles usually are a one-to-one match. There's some exceptions where there's a user group or a grouping of people that do not have a one-to-one role group, but you can see here in most cases there is always a one-to-one example. So for example, the user group DP power user OAR is linked to the DP power user role group. And here's an example of some of the functions that you could see. If you were all users, you would see something like the My Permissions tile, which we'll talk about in a second. If you're a DP user, that would control which key figures you can actually edit. The DP power user is given the ability to run a statistical forecast model. And then this general segmentation role group can manage the ABC XYZ segmentation configuration. Here we have Nikki, and we're trying to determine how she sees the data that she does. Again, she would be assigned specific role groups, in this case all user OAR, DP user OAR, DP power user OAR, and general segmentation. In this particular case, there is a business unit that's being assigned to this, again OAR, and that means that there is an attribute permission filter that says you can read the only the OAR data. What figures you can actually edit is controlled by the role group, but this allows you to actually see them in the first place. Our design currently, as the shooting of this video, it's all about groups, so role and user groups. So back to this diagram, you can see that we have just the user groups and the role groups that we want to focus on. So role groups. Here we have a very simplified version of the functionality. For example, here under web, do you have access to run the IBP web reports? It's a very basic function. The second chunk of functionality would be, can you edit master data for your module or for your business unit? Can you edit a key figure, or which specific key figures can you edit for your business unit, and then what jobs you can execute. So can you execute the statistical forecast job or a copy operator of some sort? And then finally, are there additional functions that this particular role group gives you? So any additional tiles, and there can be many. So this is not intended to be inclusive, just to give you kind of highlight the differences between those role groups so you get a better understanding of what role group is appropriate. So the first role group is a user, and really the only thing that they can do, one of the main things that they can do is the view a web report. They can't edit master data. They can't edit a key figure. They can't even get access to the Excel add-in, actually. Certainly no jobs or other functions that they can really do, although I think a user would see about 3 or 4 tiles if that was the only role group that was assigned to them. The second role group is DP user. You can see here that it can edit master data and edit key figures. It also has a job, the copy ad hoc process. They have control to run that job as well. The DP power user cannot edit master data or cannot edit a key figure, but they can run the stat forecasting model. And so what that means is that a DP power user must have at least these 3 roles to do their job. So the jobs are inclusive. The IO user can just edit specific key figures. It is up to the IO power user to actually be able to edit the master data in IO. And they can also run the multi-echelon inventory optimization job. The supply user can also edit master data, edit the key figure. The supply power user can edit master data and also run the supply heuristics. Those are the general module specific roles. Then we have the segmentation role. It's a general role that can be run by any module, and it's for ABC segmentation. And then we also have the IT roles. So here's IT support. This is a read-only role. So it can read everything, but it just can't do anything. It can't run any jobs. It can't edit any master data or key figures. There's the IT application job. So they can execute most jobs, and they have the function of being able to run the application job tile. This is because in production, we expect to have an IT person be able to run jobs and maintain them. There's also an IT data role, which is capable of flat filing, loading a file. So they have access to the data integration tab. And then finally, we have an IT config role, which would be, if you've ever heard the term a firefighter, this is essentially what this is. It gives us all access to run pretty much any job, edit any data, but it's only assigned to. So for user groups, it gets pretty simple. All you have to do is take all the role groups that are business unit specific, so those 7, and then you just add the planning unit at the end, so the specific business unit or subnetwork at the end. So it would look like that for OAR, which would be outdoor and recreation. But then if another business unit comes along, we would replicate these for user groups. So it would look like this for CCS. If you're in one of these user groups, then you must have the corresponding role group, and vice versa. Being assigned the DP user role group is worthless without the DP user group. Troubleshooting. With SAP release 2008, that's August, that went live in August of 2020, a user can check their own security settings. So it's called My Permissions. You can either find it pretty much at the bottom of all your tiles, or you can search for it in the bar up above by just searching for permission. Once you click on it, you can see what business roles that are assigned to you. You can also see what user groups are assigned to you, what key figures you can read and write, and what master data attributes you can read and write. So it's pretty easy to check to see if you A, have the correct role groups. For example, a demand planner user should have at least the user and DP user role groups. B, you can check to see if you have the correct user groups. For example, if you have a DP user role group, then you should be assigned to at least one DP user group, for example, DP user OAR. C, you can also check to see if IBP thinks you should edit master data or a key figure. For example, a general user cannot automatically edit key figures. That requires a DP user or an IO or a supply user. So we don't expect you to all become security stewards, but it can definitely speed up the resolution. Instead of saying my security isn't working, or maybe you don't know if your security is working or not, you can say, I think I'm missing the blank role group. Or IBP says I can't edit this demand planning key figure. Is that correct? Again, not expecting you to all be experts, but it takes away some of the mystery and frustration of security issues. Thanks again for watching Practical IBP. By liking and subscribing, you save everyone a whole lot of work and effort, including yourself.